Yes, there it is.
We're good to go.
Yes, what is the fifth dimension? This is a conversation that is part of the launch of the What is the Fifth Dimension? Unus Mundus Beginner's Guide. I'm going to talk today with Renata Duca. We are broadcasting at the same time on YouTube and Instagram. Is there a way to mute this thing? I really dropped the volume, but it seems that it didn't drop completely. Oh, yes. No. How do I do that? Can you drop your volume completely?
I think we can turn our microphones off like this.
Okay, but will they hear?
I think they hear you.
Okay. Well, let us know.
Responde aí, Fê.
Can you hear what I'm saying? No, right? Okay. Okay, can you hear what I'm saying? Okay,
Yeah.
good. So let's start again. What is the fifth dimension? This is the launch of the beginner's guide. What is the fifth dimension? Unus Mundus. This is a series of conversations that I've been having with interesting and very intelligent people in this channel. Our invited person today is Renata Duca. She is a conflict mediator and a meaning designer. We are going to talk about the 5D in our daily lives and how do we create things using this psychotechnology. It can seem magical because it is a psychotechnology and it has an enormous impact in our lives. And from a rational perspective, it is a bit crazy how this works because we're not limited to the physical world. We're using psychological technologies, or like Renata Duca likes to say, technologies for the soul. However, it is a very concrete thing because some examples of the things that we create are careers, products, services, and businesses, not to mention families, relationships, and lives that make sense. So be with us. You can ask questions on YouTube where we are live. I will try to pay attention to Instagram too. Let's see if I can. And please join the conversation. Be most welcome.
Okay, so I'm turning my microphone on again. On Instagram, you can turn yours off so we can avoid the echo stuff.
Yes, already.
Good afternoon, everyone that's here to listen to us. It's a pleasure to be here. I work with Fernando for many years now. I lost the count. And I think that the most impressive thing that we might say about the 5D dimension is that starting with the psychological dimensions, people usually don't know what that means. But once they start to go in a path of evolution in their minds, they start to notice that things start to work differently when they are evolving their consciousness. So when you start your progress in your spirituality, in your psychological development, you have a list of things that work and a list of things that doesn't work. That's what Fernando calls the third dimension. And there's a list of, oh, these things you cannot do, these things you can do. And we are taught by society to follow these rules in order to live in a society and in a civilized world. But as you start to develop your consciousness, you start to notice that you can be at the rule for every situation. Like there's so many individual persons and situations that it needs to be analyzed, like every situation with a different background. And then you enter like the fourth dimension. That's what Fernando calls the fourth dimension. Like there is an ethical dimension. You start to work with ethic and not with the morality of life. And usually people don't observe, but they start to work. Your psychological engine start to work in a different way. And when you go to the fifth dimension, that is what he calls like the 5D, you start to work with a different engine as well. So you already learn like what the society teaches us to do, the moral things, morality things that we learn in order to live in civilization. We already learned how to think in ethic terms individually. And when we get to the fifth dimension, we start to look at ourselves and to the world like individuals, and we choose things, assuming our consequences about the things we choose. So we're not looking for get things on stillness, when you have like a balance, when everything is in balance. We're not looking for that anymore. We're looking for movement. We're looking for creation. So what I see, Fernando told me to bring some stories about the fifth dimension. And the first one that I want to bring after this introduction of my own, because it's not my creation, this dimension thing and psychological dimensions, it's all about his job. But I'm trying to be like understandable here to following us in this crazy conversation that it seems to be a crazy conversation, but it's not, and we'll prove that. What I really observe when people go in this transition from the fourth dimension to the fifth dimension is that, and I was at my office today, and I was seeing someone that said to me in my meaning design sessions, she said to me, I observe that I have a lack of faith. And I asked her, what do you call a lack of faith? And she's a psychologist. And she told me that she was forever a spiritual person that meditates, that do yoga, that already made like a spiritual tourism. She entered like the church, the Buddhism, the Umbanda, and every other religions and knowledges like Kabbalah around the world. And all of that used to work to her. Like, okay, so now you, in order to solve your problem, you need to meditate on the fifth ray of light, that the color is violet, and you will solve your things, and woohoo, that's like spiritual development, and you're done. You only need to think positive, and you get your shit solved. So, and she told me that it used to work for her, or she believed it used to work for her. But now she observes that she has a lack of faith because, and I told her that I think that her inner engine of her psychological dimension has changed, because people notice their faith change, and the things that used to work doesn't work for them anymore. It's like when you're a baby, it works to call on your mom and say, okay, I'm hungry. When you're an adult, it doesn't work anymore. You have to get up and do your own food. So I think that's the very first difference when you have the transition from 4D to 5D. And you see that you start to feel like a lack of faith, and you don't even know what you're going through. You don't have this information that we're bringing up here today. So you what you feel is a lack of faith, and you feel that the results you once had, you don't have it anymore, and you don't know why. I don't know what you have to say about it, but it's like something I observe from people.
I'm going to switch the mic on again.
Go.
Well, this is maybe the most important sensation that you have when you become 5D. Because yes, 4D is a dimension that is more known to people, even if they are not 4D, even if people are third dimensional, the idea of 4D is known. What do I mean by that? Is that even people who are totally ego driven, what is very okay and correct in 3D, no problem with that. That's it, the best place to do it. But even if they are fully ego driven, they know the idea present, for example, in Christianity, but also in many other religions, uh, that there is this transcendental power, this force that guides the universe and points directions, that is able to show you what to do or where to go or who to be. If you are able to really follow that force or not, this is what the difference between 3D and 4D is. So people in 3D will hear about this force, but they will follow morality. There is no room for this force to behave differently or unexpectedly. Uh, it seems that God is following the Bible, not the other way around. But when you move into 4D, this transcendental force is behaving whatever way it wants, regardless of what religion says, and you need to be able to follow that force. That's when you develop true faith and devotion, and you become able to follow these forces. But when you move into 5D, there is this strange phenomenon that really made me feel a lot of pain when I made my own movement into 5D, that I called retreat of the soul. That is, the transcendental force does something that looked like this. Well, we have reached a full view of the psychological landscape. We have looked around and we have seen the archetypes. We know what are the archetypes. We know what is the mother about, what is the father about, what is to be a creative child, what is to be a hero, what is to have a shadow and unacknowledged side of our psyche. We learned a lot of these ideas that make that when all together make us complete. And because we have seen all of these things, the soul retreats. So your example about the child and the mother is the best one, because what happens is exactly this. The soul as the mother would simply say, well, you're a grown up now, so you don't need my orientation anymore. You need to decide what you are going to do with your life. And yes, there is a enormous drop of faith, because at this point you were used to following directions. You were used to following the transcendental force. And it's good, because in a way you don't need to think about where should you go, what direction is the best one to you. You need to live ethical conflicts, but that's the most complicated it gets. But when you move into 5D, the emotional landscape is one of abandonment. You feel lost because you are used to orientation and suddenly there is no more orientation. This was a deep pain for me, and I took around 2 years to recover myself from that. In the beginning, I just didn't know what to do or which direction to follow. And what would happen was that I would go, let's say, right, and the other day I would go left, And for the psyche, there was no difference. There was no saying, oh, this is right or this is wrong, don't do this or do that. It's just, okay, do whatever you want. And then I felt lost for the first time in, let's say, 10 years, 12 years. A problem. But I would like to tell them the story of the day we met. Um, it's a good opportunity to give an example of how arrogant we can be. It was a day when I saw my arrogance face to face, because the first day I met Renata, she went to my consultation room for a first meeting, and I looked at her and I thought, why is this third dimensional person here? Not because I have any prejudice or because I not like 3D people. Much to the contrary, sometimes I envy them. Can I go back there for just a month?
Easier.
Yes, holidays from 5D maybe. But I looked at, they just didn't go very often to my consultation room because uh, talking to me can be complex. So usually people seek my services for a little bit more complex problems. And then I took Renata for a third dimensional person. And for my surprise, that was not the case. She was already 5D at the time. And I was not able to recognize that because up to that point, every 5D person I knew had become 5D in front of me. So when a 5D person that was not part of the group I used to meet showed up, it was quite a surprise and quite a learning for me, because then I finally saw for the first time that this was a natural stage of consciousness development. It was not a miracle that would happen, but something that everyone can reach if they would like to work towards that direction.
Yeah. I think that I remember that day, and I remember asking to you like, oh wow, so this fifth thing dimension, so is there any person around me who is like 5D? Is there any enlightened person who is 5D? And I already was, and you already were. So and then we were like, oh, okay, you are 5D, let's deal with it. And I had no idea, because I have never heard of this dynamic of you having psychological dimensions. So I think this is new for everyone here. And I remember that when I first entered the fifth dimension, what happened to me was an enormous disappointment, and I was really, really upset with the stage before, with the 4D dimension. So it used to work for me like for many, many years, and I had an enormous spiritual and consciousness development at the time. Really, I think for more than 5, 7, 8, I don't know how many years, but like we can put a decade and more developing the fourth dimension stuff. And I really get real upset when I entered the 5D, because I really felt lost, and I felt like a baby, because what I was feeling is that I had to learn again how to walk, how to connect with myself, with my new and old spirituality, where now things get place. It's like you move to a new house and you have to reorder things in your new house, and this new house is you, is yourself. So I remember this transition was very upsetting for me. It was really hard to understand how things would work as an engine itself. And what I started to notice is that the fifth dimension is like a very pragmatical dimension, as you have to, as you're treated like a grown-up spiritual person, and you have to get things done because you're not allowed anymore to ask God to do something. Please, God, give me money. Please, God, give me work. Please, God, give me a boyfriend or a husband or a child or whatever it is. It's something that it's really in your power, like in your hands. And the work you have to do is to, of course, know yourself. Like self-knowledge is key in every dimension you are. I think there's no discussion about it, but you really have responsibility for the things you built in your life. And I think that leads us to a very interesting chapter on the fifth dimension, that is the creation. Because after you
Before you
enter...
move into that, can I comment something?
Claro, sure. Claro, sure.
Um, the first comment I would like to make is it's interesting how difficult it is for human beings to deal with true free will. Because what we are talking about here is that we are, when you moved into 5D, you were leaving behind a dimension where you were told what to do by a transcendental force. Yes. Is this transcendental force something external to you? It is external to your ego, but it is not external to yourself. It's the deepest part of yourself that is telling you what to do or what direction to follow. So you're independently of this being something that sprouts from within you, it is telling you what to do. It's a deeper part of yourself telling the most superficial part of yourself, that is consciousness, what to do. And we are okay with that. We feel fine with that, at ease. It's comfortable. In the beginning, it's not, because it is breaking your ego down. But after you get used to it and you see how good results it can produce, then you become enthusiastic about it, because you know that if you follow that force, you're going to grow. Your life is going to grow. So you do it. But then when you finally reach adulthood, spiritual adulthood, then you're free to do whatever you want. You're free to choose the reality you want to create. And then all of a sudden you react like, oh, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I don't want this reality. I want to be told what to do. And then you want to go back. So I don't want to develop a lot about this because it's just an observation. I think that you that is watching us can use this to think about what is to be a human being. But it's an interesting idea for me, how difficult it is to deal with freedom at first. And one thing that freedom produces is that Renata told us in the beginning, it has consequences. Sometimes I see people talking about 5D as if they were gods that could do whatever they wanted, and the consequences are just not mentioned. This is crazy.
Yes.
First of all, it's not that you become God. This would be the ultimate level of pride. But yes, you have greater capacity. And if you have greater capacity, you need to deal with the consequences. So maybe you want to talk to us about creation and the consequences of creation.
Yeah. First, I'm going to read something that Ninka Bernadette Morrison told us here. Unfortunately, 5D is part of the deception, designed to distract light barriers. 5D is unfortunately BS. I don't know what BS means, but I felt first it was as well, and most spiritual people want to face that the spiritual world is hijacked. Do you want to do a comment about it?
Yes, I think the word is bias, prejudice. Oh, I thought you were going to answer, so if I'm going to comment, can you read it again? Or is it here on Instagram?
Yes.
Okay, so let me go back to that. I don't see it here for some reason. Okay, can you read it again for me, please?
Unfortunately, 5D is part of the deception, designed to distract light bearers. 5D is unfortunately BS. I felt first it was as well, and most spiritual people won't face that the spiritual world is hijacked.
Okay.
She's saying again that I fell for this as well. Most light workers did. There are 12 dimensions, and the spiritual matrix wants us to get stuck, focusing on 5D.
Okay. Okay, I understand.
She's saying more. I'm not trying to attack, but we are in a spiritual warfare.
Okay, since you're using the words deception and bias, I believe that you were talking about the usual stuff about 5D, which is thoroughly not what we are discussing here. So I know you didn't mean to attack. I do agree that we are in a spiritual warfare, so it's very nice, to say the very least, to find people who can have such a vision, who can see also the darkness that there is in our world, and to see that spirituality is not this fairy tale made of violet ponies that people would like to make us believe. So I thoroughly agree with that. But I would suggest humbly that you would read the book that I have published, or the beginner's guide that I have been launching in the last 2 to 3 weeks, that describe 5D not as the fairy tale made of ponies, but as a psychological system based on Jungian psychology, the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche, Kundalini Yoga, Tibetan Buddhism, Greek mythology. Then you will see that we're not trying to sell fantasies, but on the other hand, a methodology that people can use to develop their consciousness. And if you would like to ask further questions about this, feel free. We can answer them in time. If you want to access the beginner's guide, the link is in my link tree in my bio on Instagram. Okay? I think that would be it. Now, if you would like to talk about creativity.
Yeah. So I think that we were saying that we are usually in this path of development, spiritual development, psychological development, age development. We grow old. So we are, even when we are grown-ups, we are still waiting for someone to tell us what to do. And that takes away from us our capacity to create, to innovate, and to put things in movement, because you always have to do what your boss says that you have to do. You always have to follow your checklist. Like, you have to do this, you have to do that. It's unusual to have the ability to create your own life, to create your reality, to create your work, to create your life. And we get ourselves stuck in lives that weren't designed for us or by us. And that's like the main center of my work. I started to develop a handmade job, a handmade work as my profession as a meaning designer and a conflict mediator, because I started to create and to design a life and the job of my own. And I think that this capacity comes with the fifth dimension, because after you observe how your life changes, you observe that no one is gonna give you the reality that you want, the job that you want, the opportunity that you want. And what will happen is that you won't live a life that makes sense. And I think that is a very important highlight. Even if you are 4D, but if you are like 5D, it's like super duper highlight. Because in 4D, you're looking for meaning in a very special etymology study of the word meaning, not as we use like, the meaning of a bottle of water is that you are thirsty. That's not what I'm talking about meaning. And when you are 5D, you start to make choices and to create situations, realities that make sense to you. And yes, there are consequences because you are a grown up and no one is telling you what to do. No one is bossing you. No one is nothing. You are creating. And of course, you have the life and the circumstances, the situations, the everything that is not under your control. I'm not saying that we are gods and we are creating everything we want and woohoo. No, of course, there are any and many unexpected events that comes through our lives, and we have any control of this. But at some point, you have to take a look at you and seek for a sense in your life. And this capacity makes you move, like the movement of the fifth dimension comes from this capacity to create, to make choices, to deal with the consequences, but to start building something from this point on. And what is this something? Is the work that you want to do, is the life that you want to live. It's everything that makes sense to you to live, not only being like living with the things that life brings to you, because yes, of course, life brings stuffs and opportunities and people and things and ideas, and okay, life can bring you some of those, but at some point I think that you might not have this amount of opportunities and people and ideas and things, and it's like the responsibility you have, it's on your own, it's in your hands, and you have to make a decision about what you want to start to build and to create a life to your own.
One important thing to say about that is, why do you need 5D to do that? Because if someone is not paying attention to what Renata is saying, it might seem that the same things could be done in 3D, not even in 4D. So why is it important to be 5D, to do that? Well, when we are 3D, we believe that we are creating the life that we want freely. And there's a reason for that. The reason is that the self, as Jung created the term, the self, meaning your higher self or your deepest self or your inner guide, let's say like that, your deepest individuality. In 3D, the self is not doing anything. The self is silent. It is only a potential. 3D people are not 3D because they want. And they are not 4D, not because they want to not be 4D. They are in this stage naturally because the self says so. So there is no transcendental force moving you forward. And what is happening in 3D is that you have an identity. So these free choices that you believe that you are making, they are in fact the result of your identity, the natural outcome of your identity. So think again, when did you choose to have your personality? Have you ever been to some place where many personalities were available and then you chose, oh, I want this third personality on the 7th shelf, please? Of course not. And even if you had done that, you would have already need to have a personality in order to have preferences, in order to choose a personality. So you would just move the problem around. So the fact is that you have been given a personality. You have been given an identity. And since you have been given such a thing, you have not been free to choose in the first place. You are the outcome of your story. Of course, you have something unique in yourself, but this unique thing has been covered again and again and again and again and again by the many stories of your life. So your choices in 3D are not free. They're the consequence of your identity. Then when you move into 4D, you have two stages. In the first stage, you destroy your identity. And this is something crazy because everything we stand for and proudly defend about ourselves, I'm a man, I'm masculine, I am a winner, I am this and that, and you defend that thing in the most powerful way you can because you are defending yourself. This is destroyed. So I don't care if I have this or that personality anymore. I don't care if I have this characteristic or that anymore. Much to the contrary, I want to have all of them. If I can have all of the characteristics, if I can be whole, why am I going to be attached to one or two characteristics only? So there comes the second stage of the fourth dimension, that is being face to face with the archetypes or the gods, if you prefer, whatever terminology you prefer to use. And then you discover that you have many other possibilities other than the one you chose to base the one you based your personality, your identity on. So you discover that there are many other possibilities in the universe. If your life was mainly about being a professional, you discover that you can be a father, you can be a wise man, you can be a child, you can be a priest. If your life was about being a mother, you find out that you can be a hero, you can be someone with morally criticized characteristics, and why not? So you find out many other possibilities, and only when you are free of your own identity and have become acquainted with all possibilities in the universe, then you can make a free choice, then you can create. And this is why 5D is different from 3D.
I think that's a very good point to get the difference between the dimensions. And I think that it's important to say that it's not a competition. It's just natural stages of development. And some people are put in a path of spiritual and psychological development because life gets you in it, or because you want to do it. But it's not always a free choice. I didn't start it to work my self-knowledge and my spiritual development because I woke up one day and said, oh yes, I'm going to start to study psychological dimensions and woohoo, I want to get like 5D. It's not like that. It's like a natural development system that you go in a path and you start to develop yourself. And I think we get very misunderstood here, because I think many people today are like 3D, and for me and for you, I'm certain that it's not a problem. It's just a part of a natural development system. But I think when you're 3D, you don't have the notion, the overview of what is going on. So to follow this conversation that we're having here is something like what they're talking about. Like they're talking about psychological dimensions. Wait, because the person is living this, you were saying 5 minutes ago, like the person is trying to understand its identity. It's trying to choose things based on its identity. The notion of transcendental powers of or gods or archetypes are not even known about 3D people, because it's something like you have this size, and if you have something like bigger than this, it doesn't fit. You have to open up a little bit to start to comprehend more complex psychological systems. So that is what 4D do for your life. Like you are okay with your choices, with your identity, with your preferences, with what you want to affirm about yourself. And that's good enough. And then you enter the 4D, the fourth dimension, and then you start to take a overlook, like, okay, I am this, and this identity like defines me, but other than my identity, there is a whole lot of possibilities and ways to be and things to know and knowledge to learn and complex systems that I don't have even idea that exists, like this one we're talking about. So I think for 3D people that are listening to this conversation, it is important to, other than say, oh my God, this crazy stuff these guys are talking about. Like, is it possible that me in my very, very tiny life in this enormous world cannot know about this subject? And, you know, this thing that they're talking about may possibly exist. Like, I don't think that 3D people sometimes stop to think about, okay, I don't know about this system, but it may exist. So let me check. And this is like just a walk towards the fourth dimension. We have here some comments saying they're playing the persona, which means mask in Greek. About who said that is AENFR. Okay, so you have like a difficult name here, a difficult nickname here on Instagram, but I think that will do it. So if you want to comment on that.
Yes, I understand the comment. It's important to say that 3D people are not playing the persona because they want. First of all, they're playing the persona for themselves. When you have an identity, you believe that you are that identity. And that's why you stand for it. And you need to do that. It is not a mistake, you see, it's part of the development. You will only be able to listen to transcendental forces, to see transcendental forces in your dreams and other techniques that we use. If you complete the stage of development of 3D or any dimension that is prior to 4D. And that means that you need to develop an identity. You need the identity you are going to destroy in 4D. You need to have something to destroy. So yes, if you're using the word persona in the sense of something that is not coming from your deepest individuality, you could say so. It's not exact because it is coming from within. It is the first thing that you develop, and then it will be followed by others. But yes, I get the point. It's not thoroughly authentic because it is too exclusive. Like, I am this way and not all the other ways. And this distances yourself from your deepest being. But it's also important to say that in the language that we use, persona means another thing entirely. Persona is an archetype, one of the 9 archetypes defined by Carl Jung in his Analytical Psychology. And as an archetype, it means the God that moves you towards a direction. And the specific direction that the persona moves you towards is that you have to do something. You have to express yourself in some way. So regardless of both Renata and I here having all possible characteristics, we have preferences. So I don't have all the professions in the world. I chose one. I am not living in all cities of the world. I chose one. So we have preferences. We can move. We can change professions. We can move to another city, but even then, it's going to be one. And the persona is the God that says, "What are you going to choose preferably? What is your primary action going to be?" So there is this difference in meaning, but yes, I get your idea and I agree. Uh, in our conversation, very quick conversation before we started this, you said you had a story of, I don't know if you're following any order here because we did not like rehearsal or prepare this, but you said you had a story about dynamic forces versus stillness. This is one I would not like to leave out of this conversation because I suppose you're going to address a little bit of darkness, and I would like to do that in order to avoid us getting mixed with ponytail stories again.
Oh God. Yeah, so as I was saying, when we step into the 5th dimension, the engine, our psychological engine, starts to work differently. And when you're like 40, you are used to work with your shadow, like, oh, okay, I'm a female person, so in my shadow is like the male in me. And the thing is that you work on to integrate the thing that is left aside, and you become like a whole person, like a total person. Even if I am a female, I have like in my practice, in my daily practice, my male side. So it's not aside from me, it's present, even if I am a female person. So when, okay, and that's a job you do in the 4th dimension, that's fine. When you go through to the 5D dimension, you start to deal with like a more difficult shadow, if I may put on these terms, that we call dynamic forces. So what happens is once you are a 5D person, you are like, you have this overview of this totality in you. So I am female, but I know my male side. I am grown up, but I have my inner child with me whenever I need to. So that's the thing when you get the wholeness things. Sounds like Scorpio, integrating what you left behind. Okay, so I'm a Scorpio person.
Great.
You got it. You got it. You got it. That's a go. So I think I'm making myself clear here because he got my zodiac sign. So I think we're good. I think we're good.
Yes.
So once you enter the 5th dimension, the 5th dimension, you don't have the choice, the right to stay in your comfort zone. Because once you come from the 4th dimension and you have like the totality integrated in you, and you are like male and female and grown up and child and Scorpio and Taurus and everything, you know a little bit about everything. you need to perform one thing at a time. And once you choose to perform one thing at a time, the others will go down. Because even though you have the knowledge of the many possibilities of the archetypes, of the goddesses, of the world, of everything that it is to be, and you are open to that, and you have some of these totalities already in you, you can be everything at the same time, because we are humans. So that takes away the God possibility that some people think about they are 5D and they think they are gods. No, we don't. And thanks God, we are not gods. So
Whoa, that's a relief.
yeah.
Let's have less things to manage.
Yes, less things to manage, please. But once you have like this higher shadow, it is about performance, the fifth harmonic. Yes, you're getting it. Good. So once you are in the fifth dimension, your shadow won't leave you in a comfort zone, because the fifth dimension is like the movement dimension, is the creation, the creative dimension. So you have to stay in movement. And if you're not like living and creating a creative life, if you're not doing something, if you're not creating something that provides from yourself, from a transcendental image you saw in your dreams, in your astrological birth chart, you have some kind of trouble. And that's something, because some forces, some energies that are out of motion, like out of movement, in other words, some areas, some capacities in you and in your life that are still in stillness, like no movement, the fifth dimension will like, okay, knock, knock, knock. There's no movement here. We're gonna have to do something about it. You have no right to stand still. There is no stillness allowed here. So if you're not doing something, I'm gonna apply some dynamic force here to get yourself like a movement. And then we'll talk about it later. Okay.
Wake up.
A wake-up call. It's like a wake-up call. And then something really serious happens in your life, because we are used to work with shadows in 4D, like, okay, I have this unconscious, this is unconscious to me, so I'm gonna integrate and blah, blah, blah. And in 5D, like an event happens. It's not something like, oh, okay, I need to do this, no, your life stops, and it's a pragmatic shadow, like you have to stop your life and, okay, I'm gonna tell you, the problem is here, the stillness is here, you need to move here, otherwise you're gonna be, I don't know what. And he's talking like, it's like the Matrix will put you in circulation as a slave of someone else. Good. It's a way to
Very
think.
good indeed. Very good indeed.
So you can comment about it.
Slave is perfect. Let me open here.
Yes, microphones.
Okay. Yes, that is so very true. Because the fact that the fifth dimension is the dimension of creation and movement means that everything is very fast. So in 4D, when you're dealing with a shadow, with something dark and unknown in your psyche, it is going to repeat itself progressively more and more intensively until you see it. But it is not going to show up in its full intensity right at the beginning. So you attract this person that is complicated for you, and then you try to solve it and you don't. And then another person a little bit more complicated shows up, and the situation escalates, but with time. What happens in 5D is that there is no time in the sense of a linear time. Things are very instantaneous. So what you see is that if you avoid to see something, that thing just crumbles in front of you. It's shattered, and a part of your life falls apart. It is destroyed. It seems like an implosion.
Yeah.
And what happens, for example, it could be your something very important in your career that falls apart. It could be a relationship that suddenly stops to work and you start to fight over and over again, and fight escalates. It could be a huge financial problem, like all of a sudden. And you said something about being a slave. The fact is that in that kind of situation, this particularly negative idea starts to grow very fast. So, for example, if you are fighting with your beloved one because of some mistake you have made, everything that you lived in that relationship stops to exist, and the only thing that exists is that precise mistake. And all of a sudden, you are the worst person in the world because the only thing you have done in life is that mistake. And you should be punished forever and ever. This is an example in one area of your life, but it could be in any area. The fact is that you become a slave of a negative idea. And that idea rules your life from then on. So yes, it's a very appropriate remark. If you would like to continue with this story.
Oh, yeah. So I think I made my point. What I'm trying to say is that as the fifth dimension is the dimension that requires you to create, to move, to make choices, to build a life that makes sense, even though in order to choose something, we will see other things not happening, or, the thing is that you are not allowed to stay on stillness. You are pushed in a direction that you need to move. And if you don't do it, the very own system of this psychological dimension, it will show you, okay, so you're not moving here, and this thing is a problem, and I'm gonna give you some situation, and it might be like almost a tragical situation to show in front of your eyes, of your body, of your pragmatic life, that this thing is not in movement, is not like awake. So that's why I called, and you called, like the dynamic force, like a wake-up call. It's okay, so this area is not working out for you. We are going to shake it off to see if you wake up and do something about it and create something about it. So let's try. And then okay, you have like events starting in your life that are not like pleasant events, and then you have the wake-up call. And someone is saying here, so far you are making 5D more scary than exciting. Okay, I first, making it sound more scary than exciting, I would like to say a comment about it before Fernando takes the word, because I think every new dimension is at the beginning more scary than exciting, because you are learning a new thing. And once you don't know the system and how the engines work, you get more scary than excited. I think that's the most usual feeling that we have when we are facing things that we do not know about. So I think that's kind of natural to feel it. But we can talk about, because we put the darkness on the conversation when we enter the dynamic force, we can put the benefits and the good things we have in the fifth dimension as well. But what we want here is to create like a contrast, because in every dimension you have the exciting part and you have the scary part, because life, it is that way. Like we have day and we have night, we have the moon and we have the sun, we have hot and we have cold. So I don't think we can put any dimension or anything in our life as exciting or scary. Everything in our life are both things, like scary and exciting. And I think what we're talking about at this very moment about the dynamic forces, of course, they are not at the first moment exciting. They scares us. I am scared when I get like a dynamic force showing to me that something in my life is not going that well and it's in stillness and I need to do something about it. Fernando knows I get like, oh my God, okay, here it comes. Oh,
There's
and I
always
get
a little drama.
always a little drama, always a little drama. And I get scary and I get pissed. I super get. But then I face the things that I'm scary and then I'm not excited about it because I don't want more work in my life. And I get, okay, now I'm going to get the benefits of it. And I think that's a natural balance of life. You know, you can add your comments.
I'd like to start that with a metaphor. Then I would like to tell a story. Then there's a question to ask from YouTube, from Sandra. And then I think we are out of time. So start to prepare your final statements or questions because it's going to end soon. So first, to answer this scary part thing, I would like to start with a metaphor that is, when you are a child, you are protected by your parents or someone who takes care of you. Then you go out of your parents' home to live your adult life, and you need to deal with scary stuff like bills. You have to pay, like taxes, like the possibility of committing a crime, of being the victim of a crime, or to have to deal with difficult people at your job, or whatever could be problematic to you to deal with. However, even if you are looking at the adult life and acknowledging that it is more complicated than the life of a child, would you like to go back to your childhood? Would you like to not having the right to choose to do whatever you want to do and deal with the consequences? Would you like to remain obeying other people and not owning your own life? I would say no to this. So I prefer to run the risk and be free. I prefer to run the risk and create my own life and deal with the consequences because I am an adult, spiritually included. So this is one thing. And maybe to show the benefits, I can tell you a quick story, and some of you here have been my witnesses, because this happened in the launching of this beginner's guide. So last Monday or the Monday before, I can't remember anymore. I think it was last Monday. I was talking to Monica Bravo, a friend of mine from Miami. And right before the conversation, I broke a karma accidentally. I was in a conversation with someone else, Lucas Jetzt. He's part of my team, and we were talking, and then I saw something. I saw something true, and this truth broke my illusions about myself and my life. And this was 2 hours before the talk with Monica Bravo. Would you like to say something? I can.
Yeah, just to add something, because when we usually make a declaration of this size, like I broke a karma, people would say like, oh my God, it's getting worse. Like I'm breaking karmas. And I was talking about something very different. Like psychological dimensions, and now I'm talking about karma, and people have this misunderstanding, like the karma, it's a crazy monster that will bite you, and like, I think it's important to highlight what you just said about karma, that the karma is just something that it goes round and round in your life and gets you stuck in a lifestyle or in a situation or in an event or in something that you believe. And what he's saying here is that suddenly he broke this, like he was believing in something, and in a conversation with his friend, he like saw the other many possibilities, or like the truth about this engine that he was stuck on. And I think that this perception of karma is much more pragmatical than this crazy horse that will get you.
Great remark. Yes, this is exactly what happened. I was believing in something about myself and my life, not believing like I believe this is how it works. No, it's a strong conviction. Like you are sure that life and yourself are in such and such ways. It's like believing about a natural law, like gravity. I believe that if I drop this glass here, it is going to fall. It's a strong belief. It's not something you believe in, like you believe in UFOs, for example. It's something that you see happening in your life all the time. It's about facts. You see those facts happening again and again. But at that moment, I saw that, whoa, these facts are not the only possible version of reality. Maybe there is another version. And what I saw is that I was, the strong conviction I had was that I was almost reaching the next level in my career. And I believed I was almost there, almost there. But the problem is that this almost will never end. So it was always almost. Years of almost. And then I suddenly broke that conviction and saw facts, other facts, that pointed to another direction. And that strong conviction was destroyed, shattered. And then 1 hour later, I was in fever, strong fever. This was already the dynamic force. And then 1 hour later, I had a conversation with Monica Bravo. If you see that video, you're going to see that my mind is slow because of the fever. Then the conversation ended, and then I had a terrible night. I thought I was getting better. I was not. The fact is that I had to stay 4 days in the hospital because the fever was so strong. But at no time was I lost, because although the challenges are bigger, you need to remember that your strength is also bigger. So as adults have to pay their bills and be responsible for their work and relationships, okay, but they can be. They are ready to work and make money and pay bills. They are ready to take responsibility for their actions and their relationships. So it's not something that, oh, I have this problem and it is beyond my ability to solve it. No, you have the ability. This is what being 5D is. You have to deal with a complex system, but yes, you have a complex mind that is compatible with that complexity. And if you don't have the complexity, you have ways to learn it. So what happened was that in that struggle with the dynamic forces, it is called dynamic because it is dynamic. So what it does is that when you know how to deal with it, it helps you to solve problems at a very fast pace. And 4 days later, my career was already at the next level, and I had closed 4 negotiations in 4 days. That for me was huge. I am grateful for life and for myself for having, and for those people who closed negotiations with me. And this is the new truth I am living in. So I cannot say that these dynamic forces were terrible. Much to the contrary, they seemed terrible at the beginning. But at the end, they were my best friends.
Yeah.
And my closing statement is going to be the answer to Sandra. She is asking, how is the rebuild of identity at 5D? There is no rebuilding of identity in 5D. What happens is, because the definition of identity is, at least the one we are using here, is the set of characteristics of personality that you have. They are in contrast with other characteristics that you do not have. And this simply does not exist in 5D. So since you reach 5D, you have already reached wholeness in 4D. So 5D, you are building on that wholeness. That means I know how to be a man, but I don't care if I need to be a woman. It's much better in some situations. I can be wise, but I can be an ignorant sometimes. And it's very good to be in the situation of being ignorant sometimes, or unconscious sometimes, and let other people drive and make decisions for you. This is great. So you don't care to stand for an identity anymore. What happens is that you have an ego. So I know who I am conscious, I have a 5D ego, an ego in 5 dimensions. I am open to the unconscious mind. Whatever transcendence brings to me, I would like to see, regardless if that is a negative thing or not, doesn't matter. We can use positive and negative things for purposeful actions and creations. So, okay with that. I don't mind associating with other people, much to the contrary. The more collective I can be, the more collective my intelligence can be, or my feelings can be, the better. When I am creating a life for myself that makes sense to myself, I would like that reality to make sense to other people too. So I make my best to reach that goal. So there is less divisive behaviors or beliefs and more inclusive behaviors and beliefs. Instead of building an identity again, what you do is try to make everything that you know and are happen and become useful for yourself and other people. And that is very far from an identity, because you're not defending anything. You're standing for everything, which is different.
Our super specialists on fifth dimension, the AENFR Instagram, told us it's a dynamic identity. And I certainly agree with him, because he says you build it and unbuild it on the fly. And that's exactly it. You already know who you are, you already experience the totality, and you are exactly making choices about which part of you are you choosing to perform. The performing thing. Again, you're choosing to perform in order to build something that makes sense to you to carry on in your life. And I think we can close with that. And the answer here of our super specialist of the fifth dimension is well said. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So,
yes. Thank you very much for your participation, especially this guy that really seems to know what he's talking about,
yeah.
Or she. I don't know if this person is a or a she. Is it a he? Okay. So yes, you seem very much to know what you're talking about. Be most welcome very often here, everyone. Thank you. This is part of the launch of the Beginner's Guide. What is the fifth dimension? Unus Mundus. The link is in my bio here on Instagram, or in the description of this video here on YouTube. Renata, thank you very much. This has been an awesome conversation. I would love to repeat it very often. Okay, thank you so much. And thank you everyone who has been watching us. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me, for trusting in me to talk about these complex things and matters in life. Yes, I love this. I have like 10 artistic skills because I chosen it. That's good. You are very welcome. Fernando is launching his beginner's guide. If you want to understand more of this subject, if you want to talk with me about a meaningful life, you can come from Monday to Thursday at 3 p.m. Brazil time on my sessions here, our meeting sessions to talk about a meaningful life. You are all very welcome. And thank you. You guys are awesome too. We are very happy to have this conversation with you all. And we'll see you next time. And I see you guys tomorrow at 3 p.m.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
He says bye.
Bye-bye.
He says bye. Bye, guys.